So, Rand Paul's neighbor did something great several months ago, and we didn't have to hear from Rand Paul for several months. His dad's back in the news because his dad had another staffing mishap where, for some weird reason that doesn't make any sense, a guy whose political career is predicated on opposing things like the Civil Rights Act, for some reason seems to draw racist by him. Or I don't know, maybe even is possibly racist himself. Who knows? Rand Paul is back in the news, and even in these heightened times, it's good to know that you can count on Rand Paul for the same basic, and I do mean basic as in the basic bitch sense, sensibility of histrionic, myopic, irrelevant, but yet extremely corporate friendly and, in fact, damaging to humanity libertarianism. Here's Rand Paul talking about, deficits.
On a summer day 242 years ago, a band of colonies declared to the world that there was something more. But their bold assertion of their new status as free and independent states would not be enough. It would take years of perseverance through loss, hunger, cold, and paralyzing moments of doubt to fulfill the promise of that July 4th in 1776. War would test their limits. Victory would test their cause. Once it had been won, could this unprecedented experiment in liberty survive? While so many would risk their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor to create a new nation, they knew that only the constant vigilance of those to follow could guarantee the republic would endure. The story of July 4th isn't just a fact to learn for a history test and on occasion to celebrate once a year. It's an ongoing story that each of us plays an active part in every day. All around us, bipartisan voices demand more and more bigger government. They promise it can meet our every need and fulfill our every dream. Those promises are as hollow as they have always been throughout the world's history, and we have a $21 trillion debt to prove that big government is not free. The principles of the Declaration tell us there is a better way. This July 4th, no matter if you're on the right, the left, or anywhere in between, let us renew our commitment to those principles, to following the path of a restrained, limited government, to best protect our God-given liberties and secure the future we all want for ourselves, our families, and those to whom we will one day pass on the story of America. From our family to yours, may you have a happy 4th of July.
Well, that became tolerable when you put the music on.
Yeah.
Before that was essentially like a Guantanamo video.
I realized how long it was, and then I realized we need to add a little bit more to this.
Jesus Christ. Well, of course, what Rand Paul is doing is in a boring and uninspiring way, giving basic political claptrap about the 4th of July, and then pitting it into an old deficit hysteria. Of course, we already know that his party is totally not serious about deficits. The only point is to redistribute wealth to the wealthy, entrench the powerful, and harm everybody else. And that's literally the structural design of Republican policy. And then we also know that we're in the 21st century as a sovereign nation state with control over its own currency, which is actually a little bit more of a sophisticated way of operating than having it built around a precious metal. And we started moving away from having it built around that during the Roosevelt era. It actually culminated in Richard Nixon leaving the gold standard. And now our currency actually rests on things like confidence in things and investments which pay dividends. So as an example, if you invest in healthcare, in education, if you clean up the environment, infrastructure, these things have a way of cycling back in a virtuous cycle where we are able to recoup and actually exceed what we've gotten the money for. And then number 3, he did welcome people on the left who are also worried about the deficit. I'm not worried about the deficit. It is in a world with things like climate change, galloping fascism, structural inequality, worrying about the deficit, I guess would be like, I don't know. I can't even imagine like worrying about
It's a complete phantom bullshit concern.
It's a phantom bullshit concern at best. But I'll be in the spirit of the fourth. If you want to deal with the deficit, then raise taxes by 99% on anything above
don't
$1
vote for
million
the tax
a
bill.
year. Great. Boom. And in the midst of all of the really important things that we have to pay for that money, I guess you could pay down some of the debt if you really want to. Although even then, probably not, because it's bullshit. You can go fuck yourself.
Yeah, like, I mean, we've talked about our concerns about MMT and that it basically stabilizes liberal capitalism and it's not a revolutionary thing. But I think the main upshot that we should take from it from the left is that, one, when they try to come for these programs because of deficit reduction arguments, say that's bullshit, because look at the fucking military spending.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's very clear that we don't live in a world where this is even a problem.
I can't
Right.
even believe Rand Paul has the balls to record this in 2018 after voting on the tax bill. Like, are you serious?
Well, I think taxes are a little different because you got to give people their money. And, there's a lot of white people that need money. And there's a lot of rich people that, I've talked to constituents, and I feel this way personally. Like, every time you show a story or in the news where I'm, reminded that, as an example, like a poor person might have access to a computer or a house, I just get so upset that it could have been used to buy a fifth lawnmower.
There's a good piece in the Baffler from earlier this year if you're curious about deficits and how they're used as political tools. The Budget and the Political Imagination Deficit by Max B. Sawicki.
Great.